I met Oliver Nelson in the summer of 1966. It was a life-changing experience, an enlightenment, a discovery. Oliver Nelson never realized Stolen Moments would become partly autobiographical. Oliver was taken from us at the age of 43, and we were robbed of his genius.
2, 1, 2, 3.
Well, I don't know of anyone else that's doing this. I guess John is in a unique position because, I mean, he had direct contact with Oliver Nelson. So he can speak to that most honestly and not just giving an impression of Oliver's music, but he's giving it through his experience with Oliver. And I think that's what makes it unique. And I think that's what gives it its integrity and honesty and the sound and the fact that he's got this configuration of instruments. Given his experience with Oliver personally, I think that's no better place. That's first-hand experience. It doesn't get any better than that.
I think the instrumentation makes it interesting in the fact that there's 4 trumpets and 2 bones and 2 saxes and 2 French horns, which is obviously not a conventional big band setup. Obviously, John spiced it up in some aspects. You can tell there's some crunchy notes in there.
And it sounds the way it should be. When the arrangements are done properly, it just kind of comes alive off the page, really.
And I think the small group component is part of it as well. It's not just like a wall-to-wall big band the whole time. It's like it's big band when it needs to be big band, and it's also like quartet or quintet when it needs to be that too, which is kind of cool.
I mean, to sit in the middle of all this is really amazing. Like one chart in particular, Oliver wrote this one note. I don't know what it is, I have to ask John. And it's a really cool note. And I had that note. It's a little bit outside the chord, and it was just so nice to have that note. So to condense the stuff was really nice. And when you have smaller bands, it's lighter, more airy. Can swing more.
It's amazing. I don't even know how he assembled everybody, but he waited. He first called me for this gig, I don't know, months and months and months and months ago, and he was trying to wig out when it was comfortable for everybody to be. He had a set group in mind, and he was willing to change his whole schedule to modify and get everybody in the right place at the right time. And it's amazing, man.
The common goal, I think, is the thing that struck me the most. So in a room of whatever this was, 13, 14 musicians, all of whom almost have the right to be egotistical, none were.
And when you mentioned who the personnel on the date, I said, I'm in. Because, every one of these guys is like, first call, world class, and I'm honored to say I played with most of them in different situations, so I knew that this was going to be a great situation, a great date. And if he has that kind of stature to get commitment from these cats, then I'm in.
There was a great vibe in the room the last couple of days, and that's partly because everyone knew that the great studio's closing, so everyone was bringing their A game to the table, and then the music was great, and that the combination of people, we all know each other and have played, but the band, everyone just gelled, and it seemed like it was a really special event because of, the stars sort of aligned, you know what I mean?
This is wonderful. I mean, this is the epitome of so-called real music, musicians interacting I mean, this is what it's all about. When a group of incredible musicians working together in a room that's designed to capture their moments and enhance it if it can.
At the same time, having this particular personnel to play it, I think it just takes it to a very high level, the highest level. I'm sure Oliver himself would approve.
John, as a visionary, is following his own vision to recreate some of this classic music, make it available for new generations, but with a little bit of with his own slant on what this should be. And John also called to our attention that Oliver, even though we as musicians kind of grew up listening to some version of his music, that to the general public he's all but been forgotten in a way. And all of us, knew the name Oliver Nelson. We knew he was a famous musician, that he had his own recordings. The Blues and the Abstract Truth recording, everybody studies at some point because it's such a historic recording. But you study it in school and you learn the tunes and you know what's on there. And then Oliver Nelson went on to not only make jazz recordings, but go to Hollywood and do tons of television and movie work. But unbeknownst to us, we all kind of get caught up on our own thing that Oliver died in the 70s. And without the music being perpetuated, it kind of, again, falls off the radar. So there's magical arrangements. This guy was a heavyweight and wrote some incredible things, and just like with time, sometimes things fade out.
So in the pantheon of this music, he's one of the most, I think, important and influential figures. I still think that we're catching up to him. And I hope that this generation coming up behind us will discover him and discover the unique sounds and sound palettes that he brought into the music. That was very much in touch with the sound of John Coltrane and Miles Davis, and put it in a large ensemble setting.
He was one of the most incredible, complete musicians. Arranging, playing, the big picture.
I would think Oliver Nelson would be pleased to hear the work, to hear his work, to hear John's recreation of his work, and to hear, that there's still people who want to play his music, that there's still someone at least out there who loves it enough to want to address it, and not just address it in an historical way where, we're going to go buy 15 Oliver Nelson big band charts and put on a show, but actually John's word that he uses is reimagine, the music. And he knows John knows Nelson's music so well that I think he's probably the only one capable of pulling this off the way it went.
Well, the funny thing is, I remember when he was on Woody's band, and just to see him grow to this point where he did his own thing, is so nice. He's definitely under the radar.
It's great to play these tunes that in Philadelphia were on the radio all the time. Great influence in my life, and I know John's too. And as he was telling me the last few days, he went to a jazz camp as a student with Oliver Nelson as the person running it, and got to be good friends with him. Oliver Nelson sent him some charts, and for the last 45 years, John's been thinking about doing a project like this. It's very exciting. When we're playing, I'm sure a lot of the guys feel like this, there's chills going up and down your spine from hearing the melodies that you've always heard and played. It's a great experience.
I have the utmost respect. So when he was talking about the Oliver Nelson project, it was exciting just to see what his take was going to be, although I had no idea how significant Oliver Nelson was in his life, and that even makes it more thrilling.
He's not holding back. He tells it like it is. But what it means is, it's just he delivers the message and it's instantly understood. And he's an expert at running a rehearsal. In terms of how John runs a recording session, the same way he knows he has enough time left to get things done. He's always managing the clock and the time. He's a real pro for that. That's also fun to watch him do. Conducting, he's conducting, and these are his arrangements. And the way he draws out of the musicians exactly what he wants is a special skill.
But he's also never afraid to experiment. I mean, he's been changing parts, changing pieces of tunes. We changed something this morning before we recorded it. So that's another thing that I always loved about his writing. It's almost like it's never really finished. It's kind of in a constant state of growth.
And knowing John for all these years, how he hears music. He's also a great trumpet player, so he hears all the parts.
Like a couple times he was conducting, and he was really laying the tempo back, which is not traditional. It's really to create something which gives it a lot of space. And so he's kind of guiding us, and sometimes he's even dancing up there when he's conducting, so I'm kind of watching his body language to give us an idea of where he's feeling it. And then that kind of allows us to sort of play with it and work within the framework. But he's definitely the ringleader in keeping everything together and the visionary. And it's just such an incredible project. I'm thrilled beyond belief to be involved.
I could sense that with him kind of, the joy that I got when I was doing my thing here. Like I kind of sensed that he was getting that, and watching him conduct and just kind of smiling, and that's I mean, that's what we got into it for.
Yeah, absolutely. Seemed like just looking at him, he was on cloud nine the whole couple of days.
If he was a cigar smoker, man, he'd be down in Cuba before he was able to go, man. You understand? Yeah, he's Bugatti, this guy, man. I get the vibe. And he approaches the music that way. Gil Evans was very slow. Took his time. He's taking his time. He's nitpicking. He's going every bar. If something isn't quite right, it's a universe he has to change. You have to admire that.
Those are what I call goosebump moments, and I tell my students, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, I'll get the goosebumps, and I'll think,
that's why we do it.
That's why we do it.
I like that. I liked it all. Right. Felt good for everybody. I met Oliver Nelson in the summer of 1966. Oliver was my pivotal moment, the start of a lifelong career in music. Hearing his music for the first time was an enlightenment, a discovery. I felt electrified, as if lightning had struck. There hasn't been a significant large ensemble recording of this important music for over 40 years. I felt it was time to honor this man, Oliver Nelson, a major influence in my musical career. Oliver Nelson must be revered as one of the major jazz composers. By the time of his passing in 1975 at the age of 43, Oliver Nelson amassed a huge body of work. This body of work needs to be brought to the present. My charge was to reimagine and arrange for a unique ensemble in the spirit of Oliver and invigorate the repertoire. His work is unprecedented. I feel had he lived, he would have been the heir apparent to the legacy of Duke Ellington. If I had to describe the soul of this recording in one word, I would use the word heart. Everyone's heart was in the music and in the moment. What really made this recording successful was the attitude of the players. Their egos were left at the door. They were committed, focused, and prepared. They showed up to be a part of history. I'd like to believe that anyone that hears this record will want to delve deeper into who Oliver Nelson is. He did projects for almost every major jazz figure during the time he lived, and he did over 20 albums for himself. That body of work, as astounding as it is, needs a serious exploration by every individual that's interested in jazz. That aha moment, that summer day, became the engine of my musical desires. It drove me to recreate over and over again the passion and excitement that I felt at that moment. This project is my thanks to Oliver Nelson for creating that drive in me to do this music. The record is a homage, it's a requiem, it's a thanks, it's all those things.
I was worried about being
Do down.
Okay.
Do down. Do down. Yeah.
Oh, it's almost like the accent of the second note.
Do down. Yeah, it's almost like that.
Okay.
Yeah. What I've done is taken these charts and I've been true to the form. And if you've listened to the link, the form follows his composition and the lead trumpet part follows the composition. And everything else is kind of redone to become this different identity with the two French horns. It's always pushing and pulling. And that's going to be what I want to get from all this stuff, is to get that character of what he wrote.